Hello, everyone. Welcome to React Live. And today I'm talking about building a Markdown editor, but from a design perspective. And last year, I was also talking at React Live and I talked about SVGs. This year, I was almost talking again about SVGs, but I just decided to talk about how is to build a Markdown editor, but from a design perspective. And first of all, I want to say that it's really great to be back at React Live, and it's really a pleasure to be here and to be invited. So, just presenting myself, my name is Elizabet Oliveira. I'm a senior product designer. I'm from Lisbon, Portugal, and I work for Elastic as a senior product designer, building the Elastic UI and also Kibana. You can find me on Twitter if you search for Miyuki_Miyo. As a designer, I can tell that I also do code. I'm not like, I used to be like a front-end developer or UI developer in the past, but I changed my career and I decided just to be a designer, but I also do code, but I'm not a very advanced coder. And the reason for that is actually I don't like that much to do code, but I like to do code to translate design. So that's it. And just to explain what is like Elastic, the company. So basically we have like three solutions: the enterprise search, observability, and security. And then all of these three solutions are powered by the stack that is made of Kibana, Elasticsearch, Bits, and Logstash, and then you can deploy anywhere. So as I said before, I'm basically working for Kibana and also for the Elastic UI. And the Elastic UI is a design system and it's completely open source. So it means you can use to build your own projects. And the Elastic UI is feeding all of our Elastic products. So what is this Markdown plus editor? And the reason I want to talk about this is because I want to show what it's like to build that, but from a designer who codes perspective. And also because normally in React conferences, we only see like developers and we only talk about mostly about like the developers experience with React. So I want to show you what is my experience with React and to build something from scratch. And also I think it's really cool to show how we work in Elastic because normally different teams work in different places and normally no one talks about that, our like the process. So I think it's going to be really cool to show that. So I a little bit can tell a little bit about the background of why we decided to build this Markdown Plus editor. And everything started with an issue in our EUI GitHub repo. EUI is the Elastic UI. So everything started with this issue created by Chris in January of 2019. So Chris, he needed a Markdown editor similar to the one that developers and all of us use every day on GitHub. So he created an issue saying that he needed that. And from that, 1 year after, Ian, there is also from Elastic, Chris is also working for Elastic, almost 1 year after, in December of 2019, Ian said that he developed for an Elastic project a Markdown editor. And maybe he could like do a pull request with his own code, and maybe we could use it and put the Markdown editor inside Elastic UI. So we decided to take it over and we said, okay, just open a pull request and we can do like the cleanup, the design, and also take care of the accessibility. And then we can try to make other Elastic people to use the Markdown editor. So first of all, we tried to decide what we wanted to build. So we had that Ian's pull request, but we really wanted to define what was the Markdown plus editor. And we decided to call plus editor for one reason at this point, because we knew that we wanted that Markdown editor to write content like text, code, images, to attach files, but we wanted something more. And that's why at this point we're calling Markdown Plus. We also wanted to embed components because we knew at the time that at Elastic and especially in Kibana, if you want different teams to adopt the Markdown editor, they will need to embed things like visualization. We could see before that one use case was like to write emails. So maybe they can have like email tags, or if you are part of a team that work with visualization, maybe you want to embed a visualization. So we needed a Markdown editor where you could embed different React components. So after that, we defined, okay, this is what we want to build, and this is just the concept, and we decided what is going to be the team. So Dave Snyder became responsible for being the project manager and for the documentation. I was responsible for design and also to implement the design with code. And then Chandler was going to take over my design implementation and deep dive and make sure everything was, the code was done properly, and then take care of the API and also create this plugin system where everyone could embed a component inside the Markdown. And then Caroline was responsible for the quality management and also to review our pull request. So we started the phase 1. So we first created like this roadmap with different phases, with 5 phases. And the first phase was like just discovery, design, and research. Then the next phase was going to agree on a feature spec. Then was the third phase where the Chandler, the engineer, was going to deep dive to try to present an API. And then the phase 4 to build out and implement everything, and then try to have adoption from the Elastic teams like Kibana. So we started with the phase 1. There is basically the early exploration phase, and it's basically a phase where, as myself as a designer, was going to look for trying to create like a design and explore if it's going to have like a toolbar, a text area, and a preview, and also to get like a conceptual mock-up where we could see if that idea that we have had at the time of embedding a component, if was going to work or not. So we decided that we wanted to embed like a visualization by hitting a button in the toolbar, and then we could pick a visualization and then embed that visualization inside the Markdown editor. So I start the first designs in Figma. So I explored very basic initial user flows. The first one, just write and preview. And the write and preview, just basically you write something in Markdown format, and then when you click preview, the content is rendered. And then if you I explore other user flow, like what is going to look like if I drag and drop files, and other user flow was because we wanted to explore if the idea of embedded components was going to work. So we could have like 2 buttons. One could be like to embed like emoji. So you pick the emoji you want, the snippet appear, and then when you hit preview, the emoji is rendered. And then we explore the other user flow. There is the custom button visualization example. That is basically that idea that we wanted to explore of hitting a button and open a modal with a visualization. And then when you click add, you could see like a snippet. And then when you hit preview, that snippet is translated, is rendered as a React component. So at this point, as you can see, as a designer, I didn't know how the snippet was going to look like. But at this point, this was the idea I had. Okay, we can have something like visualize, an ID, and the time. So after that, we went to phase 2. to agree on the feature spec. So in this feature spec, different teams start saying why they would need the Markdown editor. So different teams would want like to have the Markdown editor for case management, to user communication, for annotations, or to even to write emails. So we start, okay, annotating everything, and after that, we decide to have like a bi-weekly meeting to track all the progress, and also we continuing exploring. So because we start having like use cases, we wanted also to explore that, and also I wanted to grab Ian's initial pull request and to start changing and to implement the design. So after that, this is like the user flows. I start exploring what is like to picking and creating a visualization from a Markdown editor. At this phase, as you can see, I'm not just exploring the component, I'm exploring the component inside a product. So I start exploring, what if I hit that visualization button? What is going to look like? Okay, and then I click add, and this is like the snippet. At this point, I had a different idea. As you can see, the snippet is a little bit different. And when you hit comment, you can see the visualization, and all you can have like a conversation, right? And then I explored other user flows, like comments in dashboards, or I was going to be to copy a snippet and paste it into a Markdown editor. Like I can be in this Kibana hub called Visualize. I can click share. I can copy editor code, and then I can go to a Markdown editor, paste the code, and then when I hit enter, here's a visualization. So we start exploring these user flows, and then I also started rewriting Ian's pull request, translating into our EUI standards. So I open a new pull request, grabbing what Ian did before. And this is what the final result at that point. So let me show you what we built so far at this point. So as you can see, this is like the pull request, and Elastic UI is completely open source, so you can search and come to our GitHub, and you can see everything. It's accessible and it's open. So as you can see, this is the work in progress from Ian, and then I start like trying to translate my design into code. So adding button toggle for previewing, toolbar component, a file picker initial structure. I was just worried about the design. And then this is like the final result at this phase. So as you can see, like the plugins are not like the final version. It's just like the concept and maybe almost like the final design structure. So after this phase, we went to phase 3. And in the phase 3, it's when Chandler, the engineer, started deep diving. So he started working on my open pull request, and he started doing his own experiments. So this is during our meetings. He was like showing us, at this point, he was trying to find what is like the right code snippet to embed something. So during the meeting on Zoom, as you can see, it was like showing us and seeing like, okay, if I hit preview, this is like a visualization. We can have a map. We can have like a different visualization. And I can just show you at that point. Like you can see, Chandler was like doing some experiments like with a chart and tooltip plugin, a checkbox plugin. So it was doing his experiments. And then after that, we start agreeing, okay, we already know what we want to build. So I did my experiments and Chandler did his own experiments. So at this point, we knew what was going to be the final structure. But there was one issue because I opened that pull request as Miyuki Miyu. And so we wanted to open like a feature branch. So we opened another pull request. And this time we also decided to put like to-do lists. And normally we do everything on GitHub, comments and everything. So at this point, we really knew, okay, this is what we want to build. And we knew that we wanted a UI Markdown format. And the UI Markdown format was basically, we knew that some parts, some use cases, they wanted to just grab Markdown and render the Markdown. They didn't need Markdown Editor. So we said, okay, we need a component called Markdown format. And at the UI, Elastic UI, we call everything like EUI and the name of the component. So we decided that we needed a UI Markdown format. And then the Markdown editor, that is basically what you've seen here, that has a toolbar, a text area, drag and drop zone. Also, you can have like plugins. And the plugins part is what Chandler was exploring, and he convinced everyone that it was like the right structure to have. So basically, and this is like me as a designer explaining, so for the plugin part, you just decide what is the code snippet that you want, and then you have to provide a logic to transform and to render that code snippet. And when you hit preview, you can see like the result. But all of this process, you know, you never figure everything out. And when we start really implementing in this phase of the implementation, it's when we start seeing that I missed a few things during the design part. So I didn't figure out completely the error states. So when Chandler started really deep diving and implementing the real code, he said, you know, I can give more error states, and probably it's better if you can give better error states. So I went back to Figma and I started exploring again the error state. And as you can see from the previous design, it changed a little bit. I went like minimal. So at this point, we have like this icon to attach files. We don't have that explanation anymore because we needed the space to provide errors. And then we can give a few errors. So if you have a tooltip that is not properly, a plugin that is not properly used, like in this case, the user didn't fill the plugin with the text, so we can give like an error. We can say, oh, no tooltip anchor found, no tooltip text found. And also we can have a different type of error that is like when you drag and dropping files. And we decided to have this error as separated. And so when you drag something and the file is not supported, there's this error appearing. And also if you you can see where I like the supported files. And so that's the design. So you can see that sometimes you have to go back. And then after that phase, we knew that if you wanted to have adoption for all the teams from Elastic, that we need to have like a proper documentation. And we really know that this is like the key to success. So it was when Dave started writing the documentation. And let's see. I just want to show you. This is like, remember the first pull request? As you can see, we don't have documentation, just one Markdown editor, components. This is Elastic UI. We don't have anything. So it's basically just a concept. And from this phase of the feature branch, there you can see all of our left to do, assigned to who is going to work on what, our all the change log. You can see all the work. And from this phase, we ended up with this, the Markdown format, the Markdown editor, and the Markdown plugins. So the Markdown format and the documentation is really important. So at the Markdown format, we're just saying that it's a way to render the Markdown. So if you embed something, Markdown, like this Markdown content, and you hit preview, you will have something. You can preview something like this, but then you can have the Markdown editor. And the Markdown editor, see, you can hit preview, and from the first phase, this phase to this phase, as you can see, is a little bit different. It went minimal. Also, when I'm designing and implementing, I have to make sure that it works for the light and dark theme. And then also make sure it's accessible. So right now I'm navigating in my keyboard. If I press enter, it works. So we also make sure that it's accessible. And then also, you can see we have the handling the errors. As you can see, there's one error here. If I feel this, I can give a proper example. Tooltip. Hello. If I hit preview, I have a tooltip that says hello. And this is like a plugin, but it's like a built-in plugin. And then this is the documentation for the Markdown plugin. And we're explaining what you have to do. What is you can pass like a UI, what is the icon you want, and the toolbar. And then what is the logic to identify the syntax, and then the logic to process that syntax. And then this is like what a plugin look like. In this example, we have here the Markdown editor, and in this part I have the Markdown renderer, the Markdown format that is just basically rendering. But if I delete this, you can see I can hit preview. But if I can have like a chart, I can pick, okay, I want this, and I want 6 categories, and I hit save, and I have right now the snippet. And then if I hit preview, I have it here, but also in here that I just have the Markdown format component, you can see it here. So this is all the work that we've done to build this. And now we are in the adoption phase. If you go right now to elastic.github.io/EUI, you can find the Markdown editor. You can use it. The project is completely open source. So what we want for the future, we want to build new features, of course. And we already know, I don't want to tell what, because we still need to do some more design exploration, and also talk with other people at the company. And so, but mostly we already know what we want next. And I just want to say what are the lessons I learned building these components from a design perspective. That handling different scenarios is really hard, and you learn all the way. There's always new scenarios coming up, and you will never know all the scenarios right away. But you have to know from the beginning what is like the features that you want to build, and then stick to that features, and then other things that are coming you have to prioritize, but for a future. Other thing, it's the TypeScript is hard. It's a lesson learned. and I want to show you like the code. As you can see, like we're using Sass. Right now we're exploring the CSS in JavaScript, but for the future of the Elastic UI, but for now we're still using Sass. And as you can see, this is the way we split all the code and all the process. I was always talking with Chandler. So it's always important to talk about your decisions with your colleagues. Is one lesson that I also learned. And during the process, every time I wanted to create a new structure, I was talking with Chandler, asking him if it was like the right component name. And so every step in the process of building, I was communicating, and we had that meetings. And then also try to, other lesson that I learned building this, that documentation is really important, and try always to provide good demos, like that visualization demo where you pick a bar chart and then you embed. It's a good example, and it shows off like what you can do with the Markdown editor. Maybe if you were just giving a very basic example, it will maybe make the adoption of the component more difficult. So you really have to show off like a good example, so people can know from the beginning what they can do with the components. And that's it. So I hope you like it. Once again, it's really great to be here at React Live. And you can search me on Twitter. Also, there's a Q&A. And that's it. Thank you.